You're listening to Opera Box Score.
Let's get ready to rumble!
Wherever you are, however you're listening, it's America's talk radio show about opera. It's Opera Box Score. I'm Weston Williams, joined by Oliver Camacho and Ashley Hardgrave. All right, this week, ahead of the premiere of Santa Fe Opera's Rodelinda, we go inside the huddle with director R.B. Schlather. Will our baroque purist creative consultant find common ground with Schlather's noir melodrama gangster concept? Stay tuned to find out. Plus, in the 2-minute drill, Congress is investigating the mismanagement of the Kennedy Center, and the Birmingham Symphony Orchestra asks if there's any similarities between sports and classical music, a question that has never ever been explored before. Make sure you subscribe to our podcast on Spotify. Click follow on Apple Podcasts. Hit the plus sign. You can also stream episodes of OBS every Saturday at 10 a.m. Central at amplisoundsradio.com. Email us your hot takes by writing to mailbag at operaboxscore.com or upload a voice memo using the You Got Something to Say tab on our website, operaboxscore.com. However you contribute, you'll get an OBS beer coaster, an OBS lapel pin, and a #1 OBS fan foam finger just for sharing your own hot take. Oliver Camacho, do you have a hot take?
I know we want to hear about the World Cup in just a moment, but before we do, did any of you see The Odyssey?
No, but I heard it's loud.
Okay. I saw it on Friday, and I don't know, I feel like I liked it. I didn't love it, but I feel like, you know, having seen Monteverdi's Return of Ulysses and Patria sort of spoiled it for me. Spoiler alert.
Yeah, you've only had 3,000 years to learn that story.
What spoilers have you experienced, Ashley Hardgrave?
I will tell you, but I have a follow-up question for Oliver Camacho. Did you notice that there was no orchestral score backing for the Odyssey?
Yeah, actually, we talked about that last week. It was all like gongs and other like ancient instruments and stuff like that, you know? So,
yeah,
cool.
Ludwig Göransson was tasked with just using an all-gong soiree for the Odyssey. So
I love a good aulus, personally, but I don't think I heard it in the soundtrack.
And there was good percussion, I have to say. Travis Scott was good at like whacking the ground before he barded, whatever you call that, balladeered, you know?
Ashley, I hear you have some hot takes for us on not just the World Cup, but perhaps the World Cup halftime show.
Okay, listen, like the World Cup is now, you know, it was a month of our lives and global goodwill, but it is now officially over. And I think we can all agree that the true winner of the entire tournament was Cape Verde, because they're the only team that held the eventual winner of the World Cup, Spain, scoreless. So I just want to make sure that that's out there. But now, you know, there's not usually a halftime for any, you know, soccer matches, but because we're in the US, because we're in North America.
Someone said football and we got confused and we're just like, we've got to have a halftime show.
Like, oh yeah, we do this for Super Bowls. We might as well do it here. Okay. This halftime show was full chaos, unhinged. It made no sense. And I flippin' loved it. You had Madonna. You had Gustavo Dudamel in a youth orchestra. You had Korean pop sensation BTS. But most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, you had the goddamn Muppets. It was incredible. I am so happy. Seriously, like, it was all these mega superstars that, like, sort of showed up and did their thing that they were known for. And of course, Shakira was there. By the way, she's made more appearances at World Cups than her ex-husband who cheated on her. I just want to leave that out there. She was fantastic, dancing, looking like $1 million. The only thing that was super weird was it was all like high energy, very amped. I mean, Madonna in her 67-year-old glory comes out with 2 soccer players inexplicably on the front of a Jeep. We don't really know why, but who cares? It's Madonna. And then there were shots of the orchestra, shots of Dudamel, shots of BTS. All of a sudden, the Muppets are there. The entire Electric Mayhem. We're talking Dr. Teeth. We're talking Animal. We're talking Janice. All of them were there. And then all of a sudden, Miss Piggy shows up just to be Miss Piggy. It's as if they wrote this for me. They didn't, but it felt like they did. It felt incredibly personal. Again, it's gotten mixed reviews online, but you will only hear praise from me because everything is always better with Muppets. And now is when I plug one of our old episodes, episode 405, O is for Opera, where we talk.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I talk about the intersection with Muppets and opera.
I still can't believe they got the personal friends of Beverly Sills to do the halftime show. Speaking of Beverly Sills, let's talk some opera.
Huddle up. Let's go inside the huddle.
This Saturday, Santa Fe Opera opens its 4th of 5 operas. The season began earlier in the month with Magic Flute and Madame Butterfly, and last weekend, Eugenio Onegin opened. And this Saturday, it will be Handel's Rodelinda with a banger cast, Lucy Crowe in the title role, with friends of the show Yeson Davis, Anthony Gregory, Meridian Prawl, and Hugh Cutting, as well as baritone William Guanbo-Su, and friend of the show Harry Bickett leading the orchestra. The stage director is one I did not know much about until very recently. His name is R.B. Schlather, and we will link to his portfolio on the webpage for this episode. But you will hear the story of how I came to learn about his work, and I'm embarrassed that I probably talked for 3 minutes before I gave him a word edgewise to respond to anything, because I just wanted to let him know how I knew about him. So you'll hear all about it. But before we get to that, let's hear one of the most famous moments from Rodelinda, the duet Io T'abbraccio, with members of this same cast, Lucy Crowe and Yeson Davis, the English concert led by Harry Bickett. My guest today is the designer and director of Santa Fe Opera's upcoming production of Rodelinda, R.B. Schlather. Welcome to Opera Box Score.
Pleasure to be here.
I just want to tell you quickly, like, the story about how I know of your work, and I'm embarrassed that it took me this long to get around to it. But I was at the Met finals, the what do you call the Lafont competition finals, and there was this Korean soprano. God, what is her name? Do you remember her name? She was your Cleopatra.
Song Hee Lee.
Song Hee Lee. Okay, so she was one of the finalists, and she was incredible, and she was such a confident performer. And usually in those, competitions, you expect to see a couple of, baritones who like clearly got in because they're baritones, or tenors who got in because they're tenors and they've got great voices, but they're sort of like stuck. The sopranos usually have to bring it, and the mezzos usually have to bring it because there's so much competition. And she was so just in her music, like so in her presentation physically, that I felt like I was watching like a performance. I was like, who is this girl? So I started to dig around and look to see what I could learn about her. And I saw her as part of a promo video for something called Hudson Hall, which you'll have to explain what that is in a minute. But anyway, there's a preview that anybody can see on social media, Instagram, of what you guys have coming up, I guess, next year. And she appears in this video from, I guess, your production of Julius Caesar from 2025, was it?
Yeah, from last spring.
And she's like a stage animal. She's not even on the stage. She's like actually like in the audience. And I was like, okay, this is really cool. Put a pin in that. I'm going to figure out what that is, And I saw your name. I probably saw your face. And, I go along going about my business. And then I'm looking at the Santa Fe season. I was like, oh, wait a second. It's that guy from that Hudson Hall thing. So here you are, this person who I basically just learned about not a couple of months ago. And I'm already excited about the type of work you do. And you're directing one of my favorite shows, an opera that I care about a lot. I'm a big Handel guy, with a cast that I'm crazy about. The people that are singing in this cast, I'm nuts for them. So I'm expecting my experience when I'm there to see it in a couple of weeks to be like orgasmic. So welcome to Opera Box Score.
Well, I don't want to make too many promises, but we might deliver.
Awesome. So I know you do more than Baroque opera. I see now in your portfolio on your website that you have all sorts of genres there, but it seems like you are getting hired to do 18th century opera more than other things. Is that because that's where you want to go, or is that you feel like your aesthetic lines up with what people are looking for in 2026?
No, I think it's just that music is my passion. I love Baroque opera. I love Handel. Handel's my favorite composer. I think I've done maybe almost a dozen of his works. And, if I could only do one composer for the rest of my life, I'd say hands down Handel. So yeah, there's just something about that music, the Baroque music. I think because it thrives in a more chamber scale. I feel like the personality of the performer can really come to the front, and it's just a bit more rock and roll, I think.
Well, I think that's probably where we're going to intersect, because my audience knows that I'm a little bit conservative in my taste for Baroque opera. I really believe that the music is giving us so much instruction of what needs to be done. It gives us instruction about the hierarchy. It gives us instruction about the movement. There are, obviously things in the dance music that already suggest class, like blah, 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 And so I want to see those things play out on the stage. But ultimately, great Baroque opera is about the performer. And you just imagine, like, whatever, people at the Haymarket playing cards or eating ice cream during the show and having fun talking to their friends. And it was up to the singer to grab the attention of the audience. So I feel like that's probably where we both agree this is what Baroque opera has to be.
Yeah, totally. I mean, when I was a young director in New York trying to make my start, I was down in the Chinatown area, and I went to this gallery where a friend of mine was doing a big art party, and it was this very cool crowd. People were smoking outside and coming in and changing numbers, and there was this kind of performance art thing happening in the background. And I just thought, God, this audience, the way these people are participating with this event is what I imagine the Baroque audience was like, and I just wish that Alcino was happening and not this performance art thing. So I actually then went back to the gallery and pitched them this idea, which would be, what if you gave me the space for a month and we installed a rehearsal process for Handel's Alcina, and we just open up the doors 10 to 6. We do our entire rehearsal process there. We layer in the clothes, we layer in the orchestra, and we culminate in performances. And let's do it. It's an experiment. Opera as an art form, to me, was an experiment. So we did it, and it was such a satisfying experience, because it was amazing to make this work being watched the whole time versus being in some basement of some institution behind closed doors for 5 weeks and then putting it in front of people. The watching was part of the making, and also the duration of it attracted this really interesting crowd. There was this guy across the street who would come every day with a tall boy and watch the last hour of rehearsal. Or one day I turned over my shoulder and Yoko Ono was there watching us. And so it just had this kind of amazing, magical New York quality to it. But yeah, I mean, I'm not an academic. I don't know tons about the Baroque, but I feel like I have a taste of what it's supposed to be like.
Well, it's clear that your work is trying to elicit great performances from your singers. But what do you have to say about some of these kind of devices of Baroque opera, such as long entrance music, long exit music that's meant, for, long S curves to be drawn on the stage and for people to see all sides of a costume, or the idea of, how the 3-act structure is, timed for candlelight. And so, by the end of the act, you should be in darkness because that's when the candles will be burnt out, these types of things, costumes, gesture. How are those things factored or ignored in your work?
Well, I guess I just start with okay, what is the piece about? Who are the characters? What are the relationships? And then I think, okay, so where are we doing it? What's the theater? And then I kind of start from just an empty stage. And I think, what do we have to start introducing to tell this story? And my style is like very physical. I'm very comfortable in an empty space with just the performers.
Spartan.
I guess so. Yeah. And then I just kind of see where it can go, and I use them and their physicality and their voices to fill up the time of the event. I'm not kind of like checking off a list of some of the devices you mentioned, but of course I know about them, and I think, you know, obliquely they come into the work. I don't want to spoil anything about Rodelinda, but you might be pleased.
I'll let you know.
Yeah, I don't know. I just kind of have my own point of view, and it's very based on like my collaborators in the room. Who's the conductor? Who are the singers? Who's the design team? What's the space? How are we going to tell the story?
Well, I want to circle back to that idea when we talk about specifically Rodelinda, but before I forget to ask you, could you tell us about Hudson Hall and what's going on over there?
Definitely. So Hudson Hall, or it's officially the historic Hudson Opera House, was built in 1851 as City Hall. So it's this incredible building right in the center of town. And the second floor has this Victorian stage. And the first floor has a couple of bank vaults, because that's where the town bank was. There was a jail cell there. That's where the jail was. The city council, the common council met in one of the rooms. And on the second floor, they mostly hosted traveling lecturers who would speak of a high moral character. They didn't do any operas, but they called themselves the Hudson Opera House, just seemed fancy. And it was a building like much of Hudson that got kind of abandoned. And in the 1990s, a group of concerned citizens formed together and said, we have to save this building. It's the oldest surviving stage in New York State. And it took them many years to raise the money. And finally, with an amazing capital grant from New York State, they finished it, and they completely gut renovated the place and reopened in 2017. And it kind of, I moved to town in 2014. So they were starting to think about, okay, so what are we going to do about programming? And I just happened to come by one day and say, oh, I heard that Susan B. Anthony spoke here and that this is an opera house. Don't you know there's this opera called The Mother of Us All by Virgil Stein and Gertrude,
Virgil Thompson and Gertrude Stein, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You should do it here, because the cast is all the Americana figures that actually spoke here. So we got this amazing grant from New York State for centennial celebrations of women's suffrage. And we did this incredible, it was kind of magic the way we just found all these singers who lived up in the area who came together to play the 30 roles in that piece. And we presented it as their opening performance, which was great. It made me think like, wow, this town, first of all, there's an audience that'll show up. And second of all, isn't it kind of incredible what we can do here? We're not an opera company. This is just a historic building with this incredible staff who have a real kind of like grassroots, ground up, ad hoc, DIY energy. And I thought, wow, the possibilities are there. Like, there seems to be some magic here. And then COVID hit. So it took a couple of years before they were kind of ready to start talking about doing public programming again. Meanwhile, in the summer of 2020, I discovered Rodelinda. I mean, it was a piece that I'd seen a few times, and it kind of left me cold. And I started listening to it, and I just thought, my God, this music's amazing. And it had a quality of, you know, like a great album, the way you put it on and it just starts playing, and like before you know it, 3 hours have passed and you've just like been taken through this thing. Because that's, I think, the genius of Handel's pacing. And I started looking closer at it, and I kind of felt like this has a kind of Victorian melodrama vibe. Like it's a domestic environment. It seems really focused on these conversations around marital fidelity, around female fidelity.
Yeah, and we're in an Odyssey moment right now with Ulysses and Penelope, so, you know.
Totally. And it has this very moralistic conclusion. And I just thought, it would be so cool if we could be back in a theater and like see this as a kind of gaslit Victorian melodrama in Hudson Hall on that stage, on that Victorian stage. And so one day I kind of just plucked up the courage and went to them and was like, I don't know what your appetite is for performance, but I think we should do this Handel opera. And kind of amazingly, the leadership at the time said, yeah, and we want this to be the beginning of a series of your productions, Handel productions here, which for me was a dream come true. So that's what we've been developing over the last few years.
So far you have done Caesar and
First we did Rodelinda,
Okay.
which then Santa Fe invited me to scale up for their theater, which was a big honor. And then the second one we did was Cesare. And then we planned De Mia and a Stage Messiah for next year.
Awesome. Well, very excited to catch up with that and to attend some of those. But since now you are beginning to produce Handel opera for American audiences, do you notice anything about how Americans accept Handel versus your experience, say, in Frankfurt?
Yeah, I mean, it's so cool to do Handel or Stefani or any of these Baroque pieces in Europe where there's such a tradition and there's also such a conversation because there's so many amazing musicians and they're all working together, and which is very much the spirit of Baroque, as I understand it too. And we certainly have that in this country too. It's kind of interesting for me in the Hudson Valley. There's not really a big Baroque tradition. Of course, there are Baroque performances. But so what I'm trying to say is we've got an audience who are pretty open, who are just kind of coming to it. Their curiosity is more about what is opera than necessarily a kind of like nicheness around the Baroque opera. So what we're just trying to do is be like, yeah, just come. Like opera is physicality, it's poetry, it's descriptive music. It can be on this chamber scale. It can be really up close and in your face and visceral. And like, you don't need to know anything about opera to access its vividness. So that's kind of like the opportunity we have in our 300 seat intimate space, this historic room.
So you do frame it as an opportunity and not like another hurdle, because, you know, for just in my work, I work in classical music. I know that like for some people, Baroque period instruments already is like hard for them. It's like, oh, you know, they're used to so many sounds. They're used to so much, you know, type of singing, you know, and plot moving really quickly, some stabbing on stage, that type of thing, you know?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, this really does it for me. So I just keep trying to share what I love about this music and just try to get it in front of people.
Okay. So your cast, including Maestro Bickett, you have 3 certified masters of this repertoire. Like, they are the go-to people. Maestro Bickett, Lucy Crowe in the title role, and Yeston Davis as Bertorito. And then you have the young, you know, part of the cast, the younger part of the cast. Everybody's young, don't get me wrong, but like the people who are rising stars. This beautiful, beautiful countertenor. I can't believe how gorgeous he is. Hugh Cutting. God, I'm crazy for him. Anthony Gregory as, what's that guy's name? Grimoaldo. And Meridian Prawl as Eduige, who just stunning voice. Like, ugh. And I'm sorry, the name of the baritone, William Gwonbosu. Okay.
Bosu. Yeah, he's amazing. Really exciting.
Yeah.
They're all incredible. And it's just been the most joyful rehearsal process. They've all been so on board with me from day one and really open, and, you know, they're kind of feral, you know, they just go out there, and unlike a lot of singers I work with, they, and also it's because of this kind of repertoire, they can just like be in there and live it and make choices and just discover it. And it's always a little raw and a little different every night. And, I'm just totally inspired by them. I just adore them. And Harry's conducting is, I just think, so inspiring. And like, maybe I don't know. Are you a fan of his? I feel like
absolutely, yeah.
Satisfies your interest in something very.
He's great at taking a modern orchestra and making them sound like a Baroque orchestra. He understands the rhetoric so much, and he gets it out of players that are basically modern players. But you grazed over something that I want to just touch back on, you talking about how it's different every day. And when I listen to Lucy Crowe, I'm always surprised. It's like, what? Where did that come from? Like, just her brain, the way her brain works, you know? Oh. Yeah. And Yeston, with his phrasing, he is one of the most musical people I've ever met in my life. Just the way he shapes the music just makes you feel like, oh, he was born. Just, I almost start crying when I think about, you know, his phrasing, you know?
And then, you know, add into that, for me, then I get them on stage and I'm like, all right, so now how do we put that into space? How do we physicalize these lines, these emotions, this music that's coming out of you? How do we put that on the stage? And my God, it's so exciting for me. So. And
yeah, I mean, I know that Yeston is sort of he's British. He's got a British sense of humor. He's sort of sarcastic and, self-deprecating, but also a little bit, he's got some ego on him, which I love, like there's so many qualities about him that make him such a compelling, performer. And I see that he has like this kinship with Hugh. I guess he's like mentoring Hugh, and like he realized that Hugh is like the next version of him.
Maybe. They're a trip. This group of Brits, you get them all together. They're winding each other up. There's banter. They're just making me scream with laughter and pleasure because the music is so amazing and they're so full on and they're also cracking each other up. And it's just been a total thrill.
Well, how do you feel like your, idea and your, for lack of better words, austere production scales to the Crosby Theater?
I think it works well. I mean, when Robert Mayo approached me about, whether I'd be interested in thinking about bringing this piece here, I immediately said, yeah, like I think it would work totally well. And honestly, what we did is we just took the set from Hudson and took it out from behind this tiny proscenium theater, and we just plunked it in the middle of this gigantic open air space. And it sits like a beautiful object. It's like this kind of installative thing. And I decided to put it on a turntable so it moves and it takes us, what you initially see is this kind of romantic, dusty, kind of historic room, but it's very abstract. It's just covered in this weird, unrealistic crackling texture, and it's all just painted one color, and it starts to move, and there are other scenes that happen outside of it in this kind of weird black interstitial void space. And we play some of the scenes that feel more internal and just psychological and existential and kind of lost in this weird black void space. And then we kind of reassemble in the pink room for confrontation moments or, I think it's been working really well. I'm really pleased.
Well, good. I mean, I guess sort of my question, maybe I didn't ask it well, is that the work that you do seems ready for a close-up. It seems like television acting, and that you want these like details from the performances. And Hudson Hall maybe is a space that people can see that, but now you're asking people who are further away to look at this work.
Yeah, I'm kind of a camp queen, so I just kind of get people to like operate on the scale of the place we're in. And usually, I mean, they all make fun of me. So you're talking about Yeston. He's an amazing impressionist, and he does impressions of people. And so from the first day, I was like, I don't want to talk around this guy because he's going to do an impression of me. But he has graciously done his impression of me for me, and it's pretty great. One of the things I'm always saying is like, do that again, but 3 times as slow or twice as fast. Or, I'm trying to shape their physicality with the music and with the scale of the space we're working on. So
great. Well, I always like to add in, for the sake of Santa Fe, since they're always so gracious to help me out with these interviews, do you have some nice things to say about Santa Fe, the city or the opera company?
Oh, I love it out here. I could eat the food forever. I love Christmas. I love the.
You love Christmas?
Yeah, the red chili, green chili.
Oh, okay.
You said you want red chili, green chili, or Christmas.
I love Christmas too.
I love the sky out here. I love the energy out here. They call it the land of enchantment. I've been obsessed with this place for like 15 years, ever since I first came out here. Also, I always love, I grew up in Cooperstown, and going to the Glimmerglass Opera. And so I'm kind of attracted to these places, which are kind of off the beaten path, middle of nowhere, where you can go and encounter these world-class artists and just the magic of opera coming together in like a festival season. So I've always been really attracted to that kind of ethos.
Rodelinda opens on July 25th. That's Saturday if you're listening on the day this podcast drops. R.B. Schlather, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Pleasure.
one of Rodelinda's, I guess, vengeance arias, Morai Si, sung by Lucy Crowe with the English consort led by Harry Bickett. Once again, Lucy Crowe is the star of Santa Fe Opera's Rodelinda, which will be directed by our new friend of the show, R.B. Schlather. My thanks so much to the PR team at Santa Fe Opera for coordinating that interview. They are literally going into orchestra final rehearsal today, stage final rehearsal, and then dress rehearsal is on Thursday. So they're in the crunch right now, and I appreciate getting his time. You know, I don't know, you haven't heard the interview yet because it just was recorded a minute ago, but I thought that we were going to, you know, butt heads about period performance and all the things I loved, you know, about making Baroque opera work by following the sort of template that was established for us by these great, you know, theatrical minds like Handel.
If there's no tights, Oliver usually isn't interested.
But it's like it helps to know the history of how these things were performed, and obviously he knew the history, and yet he still chooses to do it his own way.
How dare he?
Well, I mean, it looks like he's got something in common with a Bucks guard who doesn't believe in history at all. In Why Are Men and Why Are Rich People news, Milwaukee Bucks guard Tyler Harrow, he has said in several places in interviews that he doesn't believe in history. Yes, that's the end of the quote. He doesn't believe in history or any events that happened before 1950. So so I don't know if it's like audacity, male, or wealth, or both, but he says, I quote, "I don't believe in history. Hell no. I don't believe in everything that happened past 1950. How do we know that? They said Christopher Columbus came in 1492. How do we know that?" And this is where, yes, his remark is a highly contentious one, as many events that have happened before 1950, including World War I and World War II. So, yes, I cannot wrap my brain around how someone like this exists and is very talented and has lots of money.
This might be the first time I've heard a good counter argument to putting on new opera. We should get this guy into a Baroque, like historically informed performance of something to really break him out of his shell, you know?
And he'd be like, how do you know? How do you know that all of this stuff happened? I think this might be why he got punched by Nick's superstar Bam Adebayo at a Vegas casino in March. I'm pretty sure this has had something to do with it.
I'm crying a little bit.
That's hilarious sports thing number one. Hilarious sports thing number two is that the ESPYs were held live last week.
Marcelo.
With everybody's favorite little boyfriend, Marcelo Hernandez. He actually made a really great joke. He said, you know, he was up here after last year's host, Shane Gillis. He goes, he's doing the truly American thing. He's sitting on his couch while a Hispanic guy does his job. And it made me giggle a whole lot. But there were some really great music tie-ins during the ESPYs, which, by the way, listeners, if you're not familiar, the ESPYs are presented by ESPN. They are sort of a capstone of the year in sports, collegiate,
in sports fandom,
Olympics, sports fandom, professional, and a partridge in a pear tree.
There's no real achievement here. It's just like, what do we think deserves, you know, this best of category? It's like the yearbook, you know, like the sports yearbook, you know.
It's very much superlatives. Best play, best athlete female, best athlete male.
Best kiss.
If only. So they did the broadcast live from Lincoln Center, and they opened with the Savannah Bananas, everybody's favorite musical theater baseball team, who also performed weirdly with DJ Khaled. It was very bizarre, but kind of lovely. It's gotten some mixed reviews online. Unshockingly, the absolute douche canoe that is Dave Portnoy was not happy with the Savannah Bananas opening.
Douche canoe.
God, I hate that guy. Another story, different day. But then they do this thing, at least they've done it for the last two telecasts that I've seen, is that on the sort of intro and outro of commercial breaks, you know, there's a lot of tie-ins with like rap and hip hop and professional sports. So they had like this bevy of incredible musicians that did this on commercial breaks. We had De La Soul, we had Slick Rick, we had Ghostface Killah, and Fat Joe, which should have probably indicated to us that there were going to be a lot of New York Knicks heavy awards, as a lot of those people are definitely sort of in the Knicks fandom space. But again, sporting events are always made better with music. I'll say it again a million times, but it was very fun to see Oliver's boyfriend Marcelo as well as the Savannah Bananas.
Said a term, like, I'm not good with any kind of like slang. I'm just like, I'm so miserable. And like, I think I tried to say something about one of the cast members of Rodelinda, and it just fell flat. So maybe Weston will go back there and erase it. But like when you said douche canoe, I was like literally Googling, what is she talking about? And I thought you were talking about that he was Canadian, like he was a douche Canuck, which is actually also a term. It's like the portmanteau of douche canoe and Canuck. So, but anyway, douche canoe is just an extreme douchebag. Is that basically what we're saying?
Oh, yeah. I don't want us to get an explicit banner on our episode, but I would have plenty of other more colorful words to say about Dave Portnoy.
Well, if you think that's exciting, Oliver, wait till you hear about the word fleek. Make sure you subscribe to our podcast on Spotify. Click follow. On Apple Podcasts, hit the plus sign. Let us know what dated references you would like Oliver to learn when you go to our You Got Something to Say tab on our website. We'll send you over some sweet merch. In the meantime, though, let's go to the 2-minute drill.
This just in. The 2-minute drill.
All right, listen up. Here's everything you need to know about what happened in Operaland this week.
U.S. Senator Sheldon Whitehouse is expanding the scope of his congressional investigation into alleged mismanagement of federal funds at the Kennedy Center. Said Whitehouse, specifically, we've received allegations that the Kennedy Center has conducted rushed renovation and maintenance work with disregard to its commitments to Congress and the federal contracting standards the center has long applied to its own procurements. Public funds ought to be spent lawfully, prudently, and in service of the institution, not on the stylistic whims of the current president. The senator formally requested the administration's response and corresponding documents by July 23rd, the day this podcast drops.
An appeal by the current president to keep his name on the Kennedy Center has failed in court. U.S. District Court of Appeals for the D.C. Circuit found that Trump could not prove the legally necessary irreparable injury condition to temporarily restore his name to the building. Despite the ruling, the court did not dismiss the appeal entirely, at least for the time being.
A global coalition of music organizations and advocacy groups, including the Recording Academy and the industry union SAG-AFTRA, have introduced a new labeling standard that would identify music as AI-generated or AI-assisted, in the same vein as parental advisory warning stickers for albums with explicit lyrics. The new standard would be voluntary, with major labels opting in of their own accord. Quote, "Human artistry and authenticity are integral to what makes music so powerful," said Annabelle Hurd, CEO of the Australian Recording Industry Association. "Honest labeling helps listeners make informed choices and keeps human creativity at the center of our industry."
The Paris Opera and National Library of France will present a new exhibit on Wagner's Ring cycle starting this fall. Richard Wagner, Le Révolution du Ring, marks the 150th anniversary of the cycle's Bayreuth premiere ahead of the Paris Opera's own production this fall. The display will explore the origins of the music drama as well as its legacy and effect on the arts over the last century and a half.
Julian Wagner is pleading guilty to 5 counts of possession of child sex abuse material and 1 count of possession of cocaine. According to court documents, the conductor and composer has admitted to using cryptocurrency hundreds of times to buy child pornography. If the judge accepts the plea agreement, the longest sentence Wagner could receive would be 10 years in prison.
In other horrible news, earlier this week, Trump advisor Dan Scavino shared a dramatic video showing a B-2 strategic bomber being escorted by F-22s. The footage was sent to Luciano Pavarotti's iconic performance of Nessun Dorma, and no one asked him to do that.
In major awards news, soprano Amber R. Monroe has been named the next Marian Anderson Award winner by Washington National Opera. Previous recipients of the honor include friends of the show Sylvan McNair, Denise Graves, Patricia Rissette, Ryan Speedo Green, and John Holliday, and others who aren't friends of the show. Amber Monroe is currently playing the role of Mary in the anniversary tour of Fellow Travelers and will make her role debut as Tosca with Pensacola Opera in January.
And in contests named after divas events, congratulations to New Zealand countertenor Samuel Mataele, who was the winner of the Kiri Te Kanawa Song Quest, and more kudos to American baritone Trevor Haumschild-Rocha, who won the Sumijo International Singing Competition.
Crunching the numbers, a new study commissioned by the City of Birmingham Symphony Orchestra has found that the city's residents feel a similar sense of civic pride in their orchestra as they do for their football clubs. And by football, they of course mean soccer. The Birmingham Listening Project found that 32% of those surveyed named the city's orchestras and concert halls as something Birmingham could be proud of on the national and international stage, compared to the 38% who named their football teams. The survey also found that orchestral or classical music was popular in similar proportions among 25 to 34-year-olds compared to 55 to 64-year-olds. And 91% of respondents said the government should increase spending for arts and culture.
In trade news, Landestheater Coburg in Germany has appointed Italian conductor Tommaso Turchetta to the position of general music director, taking over for Daniel Carter beginning next season. Also in Germany, Oper Graz has named dramaturg, director, and administrator Marlene Hahn to the position of general music director. And here in the U.S., New Orleans Opera has named Claire Burovac producing artistic director for the upcoming season. She previously served as the general and artistic director of New Orleans Opera.
And an update to the shakeup at Opera Carolina, Maestro Stefano Vignati has been named the company's new general director, replacing Dr. Shante Williams. Vignati has been Carolina's MD and principal conductor since May of 25. Teatro und Philharmonie Essen has appointed Julian Chavez as the new intendant of the Alto Music Theater and the Essener Philharmonic starting in 2028. And finally, friend of the show, Anthony Clark Evans, has announced that he will step away from performing following his final turn as Marcello in La Boheme at the Met.
Exit stage right, Czech baritone Martin Matuszek has died at the age of 53 after a sudden illness. Matuszek studied voice at Prague Conservatory and Academy of Performing Arts in Prague before making his debut as Aeneas in Purcell's Dido and Aeneas in 97. He became a regular soloist at the Municipal Theatre in Ústí nad Labem and the Prague State Opera, performing roles in Don Giovanni, Così fan tutte, The Barber of Seville, La Boheme, and Rigoletto.
Arts administrator Joseph Young Jr. has died at the age of 96. The real estate developer and his wife, Eisen Coral Young, have been credited with saving the New Orleans Opera Association when he was put in charge of the company in 1985. Under his direction, the company saw the creation of an endowment, the hiring of full-time staff, and the creation of one of the few in-house scenery shops for any American opera company.
Bass and Hawaii Opera Theater's artistic director, Jamie J. Offenbach, died earlier this month of cancer. Offenbach got his start as a singer in LA Opera's Resident Artist Program following his graduation from University of Hawaii and Juilliard. He then switched tracks to arts administration during the pandemic, curating Hawaii Opera Theater's digital season and creating small-scale opera cabarets to attract new listeners.
And on this day, July 23rd, it was the first performance of Ferdinand Paer's Une Caprice de Femme in Paris. Birthdays include Swedish composer Franz Adolf Berwald in Stockholm in 1796, Norwegian soprano Borghild Bryn Langard, who appeared in Chicago in 1919 as Ulrika in A Masked Ball. Maybe not Ulrika, maybe Amelia. Anyway, she was born this day in 1833. In 1866, Italian composer Francesco Cilea was born in Calabria. In 1901, it was the birth of Italian-American artistic director Frank Pandolfi. He was born in Italy. He was the founding artistic director of Connecticut Opera Association. In 1931, it was the birth of English soprano Ava June, born in London. She created roles in operas by Hamilton, Gardner, Rodney Bennett, and Blake. Happy birthday to retired dramatic soprano Susan Dunn, born this day in 1954. And happy birthday to friend of the show, the legendary mezzo-soprano Susan Graham, born this day in Roswell, New Mexico in 1960.
I guess you could say her talent is out of this world. That's your 2-minute drill.
a little bit of Helena's aria from Helena, I forget her name, from I Vespri Siciliani. That's just the cadenza of Arrigo a Parli a un core, live from a 1986 performance in Bologna. Man, that was a voice. I remember when I was in college, how she was like the American dramatic soprano. Her, and then what's her name? Deborah Voigt was up and coming. God, I'm so old.
Old Debbie V.
Yeah, I was about to say, back when you were in college in 1892.
Yeah, but she just sort of stopped, and she retired. I was surprised to see her retire so quickly, when to me I thought she was, I mean, you can hear in that voice, like she was the voice, you know?
Yeah.
What are you going to do? I mean, I think when you sing those really hard roles, like, this is hard. Let me go teach.
Seriously, yeah.
Sometimes it's important to just let things go, which is really a lesson our president could learn, especially with regards to the Kennedy Center. I will say, though, I believe we have boots on the ground reporting from Ashley Hardgrave on this.
We absolutely do. I happened to be in Washington, D.C. last week, very briefly, and took a few minutes to go check out some things on the National Mall. So I can confirm I saw with my own eyes that the current president's name is not on the outside of the Kennedy Center. I took a video. I'm going to see if it can actually, I'm going to see if you can hear it on this.
In case you were wondering, still covered. But we know it's not back there.
Did you hear that? In case you were wondering, it's still covered, but we know it's not back there. So I definitely did a little walk around of some spots on the mall. Also, the heat index last week in DC was like 109, so it was not a long walk. It was very brief.
Was all the water evaporated from the pool?
Oh, dry as a bone. It is completely dried out, completely drained. There's longer story for another day, but I definitely, the petty princess within me needed to go look at the Kennedy Center and just make sure, that his name wasn't on there. It's definitely covered with, the tarp is like there. It's also being weirdly patrolled more than usual with like armed dudes in fatigues, which was very bizarre to me. Like, you don't need a long gun next to the National Portrait Gallery. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. But anyway, a little bit more on this. So Senator Whitehouse got some whistleblower reports from people who were project managers there in 2025. And they're basically saying that they were told to, quote, do whatever it takes in 2025 to get the building done before these high profile events that they were going to try to do at the end of last year. Like, that fake FIFA Peace Prize that the president got. Basically, there were several contracts that were offered by the SBA that have nothing to do with the actual like compliance and guidelines that you're supposed to do in there's a procedure for these renovations, and all of this is supposed to be dictated by Congress. None of it was. They just completely flouted, in a surprising fashion, I'm sure to everyone, any of the procedures and policies that are supposed to be adhered to. So we will see if this administration puts together any of the paperwork. The day this episode drops is the deadline that Senator Whitehouse gave them. So we'll see. Usually
I'd be worried about something big happening on the day our episode drops that we can't cover in time. But something about this administration tells me that it'll probably be a few weeks if the patterns are anything to go by. I'm most interested, I think, this week in this idea to label an AI-generated and AI-assisted music.
Heck yes.
I love this. I think this is really good. I think this is, in the world where I am a dictator and, have the ability to do whatever I want, I would ban it outright. But I think this is a good step to making sure that the industry sort of self-censors. This is often the way forward is that these industries will agree to censor themselves first, or at least label things first before the government has to crack down on them. And right now we have a very generative AI friendly government, so we can't really count on any crackdown from there. But I think this is a really good way to do it. I think it's kind of a strange mindset in the sort of opera classical music world. Just speaking from my own experience, I feel like my fellow classical music lovers tend to be fooled much less by AI generated music.
For sure.
But I know people outside of the classical music world who, have been fooled, especially people who have like, a Spotify playlist going and Spotify is just like loading in as much as possible. I think that, there's not really an enforcement mechanism at this point in time yet to make sure that labels actually start taking this up. But I think there is considerable public pressure to do so. And I think that, especially when you think about organizations like these unions and stuff like that, they might be able to put on, action-based pressure in order to make this happen too, which I'm hopeful for. I would be interested to see once these labels go up, hopefully if they do, if that will actually lead to a big drop in listenership among AI-generated and AI-assisted content, because I do think that there is something very personal about music. A lot of people are pretty angry when they get fooled about something that they like, right? And I think this could be a nice way to get the people in charge to realize that AI music is not the way to go in the future, even though we're seeing, AI encroach even in the opera world and things like, set design and promotional materials. The music itself, I think people have a more emotionally resonant action for. So
in the quote that we mentioned in the drill, the cornerstone of this is human creativity. And I think the folks in classical music worlds in particular, but also in, other corners of the artistic world really do take human creativity as this point of pride. And I also think it works the other way too. I think that the folks that are doing AI enhancement, AI generation, I think they are thrilled with the idea of like, yeah, we made this. It's cool. We didn't X, Y, or Z. It's not like these AI people are trying to pull a fast one. They're just trying to make slop quickly. So they're not super worried about like quality control, as it were. So
sure, yeah.
I don't know if you're going to get a ton of pushback from these people that, hey, if you're going to be a part of this, recording industry or union, we want you to slap a label on this. Like, I think they'll probably lean in just fine. I'll be shocked if the human creative side of this doesn't decide to do their own labeling of like, this was made with humans and not computers, but we'll see.
I do think it's going to be on the opposite. The other approach is going to have to be the way we go. I think like the prestige labels like Deutsche Grammophon and London and Sony and Warner are going to have to start saying, hey, this was done without the use of AI. I think those labels are going to be more voluntarily put on things, and it's going to, add prestige to things that should already be prestigious, but it's going to be like, this is like an certified organic, type of thing.
Well, I think that's something that, a lot of opera companies especially could really be leaning into. And I have seen it more and more in the classical music world, especially because, we're an industry that doesn't even like microphones as a general rule. Like, we didn't even like have the whole auto-tune thing except for some like super experimental stuff that only I've heard, in the classical music world. And I think that is an advantage here. Like 90% of what you're going to hear isn't even amplified. I remember my first performance that I saw on an opera stage after the pandemic was Verdi's Macbeth at Lyric Opera of Chicago. And I remember that first performance after having not seen live music in so long and legitimately being like shocked that I'd forgotten what the human voice was capable of purely on its own organically. The way those sounds cross together, even if you listen to, classical music on recordings, very good recordings, you still can't get that. And I think that's one thing that we could really be leaning into. And I think with the right message at the right time, maybe the next time Timothée Chalamet says something stupid, we could really ride that wave, Timothée Chalamet, if you're listening, come out in favor of AI music. It'll help us a lot.
The one other thing that I'm thinking about, and this is kind of my final point on this, is that there's another quote that comes to me. It was about a jazz event, but it's true for us too. Rufus Reid, really incredible bassist, as he was giving a concert and a lecture, he sort of told the audience, like, look around, you can't download this. And what he meant was you can't download the live experience. You can't download the human creativity. And he was doing this in a concert that was a little bit before sort of this boon of AI. So my final point is this. I appreciate that we're doing this. I appreciate that AI is seen a little bit as a villain and a boogeyman. However, I also don't like the absolute shutout of any sort of AI. And I also don't like the absolute inclusion of AI, like, oh, it's just going to take over. Like, it's inevitable. There's no way to fight against it. The thing is, it's a new industry. It's emerging. It's heavily unregulated, and regulation takes a long time to sort of catch up with this stuff. But I do think that there is sort of a sweet spot in the middle. I mean, AI is in our lives every day. Siri, the lady that talks, or if, in my case, the English gentleman that talks to me in my phone, like, that's AI. So, like, it's everywhere. What we need to do is find the ways and the methods and the channels in which it is appropriate and in our minds ethical to use. So in something like classical music generation, maybe not so much. In assessing a very old opera company's database and, indexing it correctly so that you can email donors appropriately, yes, I think that's a great use of AI. So it's figuring out how and where to use it within your own creative ethics.
Yeah, I take a much more, I think, adversarial approach to like generative AI specifically. I think there's so much also like, a lot of what we refer to as AI is simply the result of branding. Like a lot, like, I think, Siri to some extent is a good example, although there have been actual generative AI, things inserted into that over the last, year or two. But, I think that in general, this is a case where if audiences demand that it be pushed back against, that's a language that I think the people in charge will understand eventually once they get over the tech hype cycle that this is all in. Although maybe they could just do a survey about it. We have another English survey about.
Listen,
I don't know what it is, but this is a strange pattern that I've been noticing since I started on this show, really. But what I've figured out is that every few months or so, there is a new survey about classical music from somewhere in Britain. And it's always like this like specific micro survey about one specific organization or one specific city. And it's often interesting, but what is their survey budget like over there in England?
It's free, buddy. You can make your own survey. It's called Survey Monkey.
That's right. Or Doodle or When is Good or any of those. No, I mean, but hey, they're telling us that there is room to have pride in both this arena and this arena. And I am pun intended when I say arena. In short, get you a girl that can do both. Like there is a space for this. Like, and we know this. We've been squawking about it over here in the corner for however many seasons at this point. So this is my quick open letter, because we also love an open letter in the opera world. This is my open letter to the city of Birmingham. Birmingham, if you're listening, I know about a little podcast that talks about, and radio show and broadcast on amplisoundsradio.com, that speaks to this intersection of pride between the worlds of professional sports and some amateur sports and the world of classical music and opera. So should you ever want to dig in further on this study and have, I don't know, a broadcast conversation before one of your performances, I know a couple of people that could be really, really motivated to sort of drive that conversation for you.
And, for an extra $100, I'll even call it football. Let's wrap this show up.
Good call, bad call on Opera Box Score.
Good call, bad call. That's how we end the show. Oliver Camacho.
I did catch the Abduction from the Seraglio at Ravinia Festival over the weekend. There were supposed to be 2 performances, but one of them got canceled due to smoke, due to air quality, which was really disappointing. I was going to see it twice. But the show went on for the Saturday matinee. Bad call to Paul Simon fans who made it impossible to get out of the park after the Abduction from the Seraglio. But good call to the cast in general. Sarah Dufresne as Blondchen, Brenton Ryan as Pedrillo, hilarious actor and great singing. Friend of the show, Morris Robinson as those mean, singing all the low notes and all the high notes. Miles Mikkonen, who I thought would be a friend of the show by now, but sadly is not, as Belmonte. Maestro James Conlon leading the whole Chicago Symphony Orchestra et al. But most of all to friend of the show, Katie Lewick, who just finished singing Salome and then came out here and sang Constanza, a very different role. I don't know who else.
To say the least.
Yeah, I don't know who else is singing those 2 roles within a couple weeks of each other. But man, I know if you follow me on social media, I'm always sharing her stuff. she just knows how to get to the crux of a lament. Like every time I've ever heard her sing a lament, it's always just gone right to the heart. And the Traurigkeit, which comes before Martin aller Arten, it's a double aria. I mean, it's basically 20 minutes of singing, the Traurigkeit was so good. You could hear a pin drop. Like she took so much time and she really held the stage, and it was exquisite. So if she's hearing this, or if her PR team is hearing this, man, congratulations.
Ashley Hardgrave.
An additional set of congratulations to my polyamorous husband, Pedro Pascal, who is set to play a cellist in a new film, Behemoth, with the exclamation point in the title. He's going to be playing a tortured cellist who returns to LA after life on the road. That's going to open this, actually almost winter, December the 4th. The trailer is available. The musician shots are of varying levels of authenticity. So I have a guarded optimism. These are the same people, wow, it's late. These are the same people that brought us Michael Clayton, so it's going to be a bit of a thriller.
I heard that he had to learn how to hold a cello. It wasn't AI.
Good for him. Just once, rather than a tortured cellist, a tortured conductor like in Tar, I would love to see a happy-go-lucky classical musician just one time on the big screen. That is it for this week's edition of America's Talk Radio Show about opera. Make sure you subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts, get your voice heard, and find links to stuff we've talked about at our website, operaboxscore.com. That's also where you can put your money where our mouths are. Give back to the OBS using the Support the Team tab. Your announcer is Norm Waddell, your creative consultant is Oliver Camacho, and your audio editor is me. The executive producer of the OBS is George Cedarquist. For co-host Ashley Hardgrave and our guest R.B. Schlather, I'm Weston Williams, asking you to continue the conversation about opera as you disprove your adversary's irreparable injury. We're back with an all-new show next week when we go Inside the Huddle with conductor Alan Pearson. Plus you get more opera headlines, more hot takes, and more Kiri Te Kanawa song quests. Join us.